Friday morning. It's November the 18th, and it's a great day today. Today's word is remember, and just incredible. I had the most amazing experience the last few hours before I woke up. I was actually up in the middle of the night, and I don't know about you, but my wife and I, we have open phones. We share our telephones and our messages and our searches, and my wife has all authority to go through my phone, and I go through her phone, and it's interesting because we learn about each other. There's sometimes that my wife will share with another person in a different perspective, a different way, from a different modality that she shares with me. And that was the case today. My wife's sister and her had a long talk, and I was able to see things about my wife and in my wife's life that I sort of knew, but it emphasized and it gave me more compassion and more love and more respect and more. Here comes a little bumblebee here. I hope he makes it. Poor little fella. Kind of scary, the little bumblebee. He's just buzzing so quickly by there. He's just buzzing around like a little bumblebee. Alrighty, well, we're going to slip on in here in this little spot here, and I always go to the far right because it's basically the best way to go. I mean, over on the left there, those are the people who don't want to take any chances, and they don't want to do any merging. And I got to tell you, I remember being here at this gore point, get gore, that's where they got it, the gore point, because I get to be put in here. So I was here before, though, right about the same spot, right here, and all of a sudden, you remember how it was, the truck came up and crunched right into me right here. So I do remember that. I'm always like, so I was reading, and the fruit of my reading this morning with my wife, that light is really in my eye. It's amazing. Now, I remember that before because we had that bright light, then the truck came and crunched me. Remember? I don't know, some people have to have their headlights adjusted. Seems like a lot of these big trucks, they got the investigative lights, you know. Not just regular lights, but investigative lights. Like, they're going to blow your brains out with lights. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Some of that, though, can just be just like abusive or just very intrusive. And you know, you heard the story of the fellas that are in the police investigative box for 24 hours or 20 hours or 14, 15, and listen, we'll let you have a cup of water if you just tell us what you want to hear. And okay, so I ate the chocolate chip cookie, man, and I loved it, and it was a great cookie. Can I go home now? And it's like, really? You didn't remember saying that. You didn't remember doing that. You're just saying that because the guy offered to give you a cup of water after he tortured you for hours and hours with the bright lights in the eyes. And we're going to get you to talk, Betty. It's remembrance. So I'm going to stick with what I was talking about with my wife. So I was left feeling, I just was like, Gene, I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I felt so much love and compassion and care for my wife. And I understood. We've had some little spats and struggles, times when I've experienced less than roses and wine and good times. I've experienced some real tough times with Jean, and it's marriage is not easy. Marrying two souls together is not an easy thing, and there are challenges, there are questions, there are deep-rooted vulnerabilities that arise in a person's soul, and that's certainly the case with Jean and I. And but today, having experienced the remembrances of Jean with her sister, I see now more clearly what exactly I need to do as far as being a supportive husband, a godly, protective man, And it's awesome. It's awesome. Now, this is something I didn't think about when I wrote the word remembrance, but there's also something called false memory. And you can Google it and study it. There's a whole science to it, and it's amazing. Where people, you probably know this, but I'll go ahead and review. Walt Disney is very protective of their brand, almost like Apple, And so, Bugs Bunny, is that a Disney character? No. Wile E. Coyote, is that a Disney? No. Snoopy? No. Well, researchers have done experiments where they have tricked full-grown adults, and when they had people go to Disneyland, and then they wait about a week or so, and then they introduce ideas, kind of not real, transparently, but they just introduce it. Say, remember that time, and you and Mickey Mouse and Roger Rabbit, and you were Roger Rabbit, and Bugs Bunny. Remember how you were all there in front of the Splash Mountain, and oh yeah, that was the best time. I love Roger Rabbit. I love Bugs Bunny. I love Mickey Mouse. That was the best. And I love it when. And you're like, and they'll go through this whole thing and remember something that never happened. And it isn't just that, over and over and over again. One time, I've told this story before, my son, he used to have the southern cabin at the house there, and we were all convinced that, my wife at the time, she was convinced that she had put his study notebook on. There was a little podium I built there, and so it was on the podium right there as you walked in the room. And so, I put it right there, and it was a little stress because, well, where'd you put it, Bob? Bob, where'd you put it, Bob? I put it right there, and we were thinking, and the idea of false memory. We already knew about the idea of false memory, but she would deny, no, it's no false memory. I remember. I know. But she didn't know. Monday came around. My son, Micah, went to school. I got in the car line, waited. Morning, Mike. The afternoon, I guess. And you know what my son said? Hey, Pop, well, you know what happened with my notebook was I left it in my math class. So I got it. Everything's good. And we both were like, wow. That was the, false memory syndrome. Absolutely remembering things that were false. Remembering things that never happened. My therapist, who's now passed away, Lord bless his soul in Jesus' name. His name is Paul Clement. A very, very great man. Good man. Godly man. Awesome man of God. He, as a boy, was abused. Not sexually, but abused. Physically abused. Beaten. Belts. Socket in the... Just beaten to the, beaten all the time. Just beaten. And this wasn't a false memory syndrome. This is the way it was. And I remember because I verified it because I was there, and a lot of my African American brothers will tell you, Mama just about took your life, but you learn not to do that again. And it was the way we used to do it years ago. It's called beat you to death or live. Kind of a lot of kids died, and a lot of kids were absolutely hurt by the way that we as parents, I wasn't a parent, but as our parents raised us. And they raised us because their parents raised them. And so this is the first generation, I think, where it's been pretty clear where you don't touch your children in anger. You don't slap them, you don't hit them, you don't grab them, you don't throw them against the wall. My mother used to take my face and squeeze it to where the two cheeks came together. It was painful. And then slam the head into the wall, as she's slugging you and beating you. And I remember being in the hallway, took a belt off, and she just had me trapped in the hallway. The doors were closed, and she just savagely beat me with a belt. And I remember that. Well, Paul Clement was in that situation. He was in the same situation. We can laugh now, 50 years, gone by, probably about 50 years ago. And so 50 years ago, you think, wow, praise the Lord, I was born a millennial. I'm a millennial. I'm a lucky guy. You're a lucky guy, yes. So Paul Clement, he was playing with his friend downstairs, and years ago also, having knives and guns was not considered a terrorist act. If you had a knife or a gun, it was just cool, because Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier, dun, dun, dun. And you had your buckskin knife, and you had your gun, your 6-shooter, and you had your rifle, and we used to go to the rifle range and shoot 22s. I mean, it was quite a life. Oh my God, that guy's a maniac. Just all the way across there, right across all the double lines. Scary. So Paul's down there playing with his buddy, and he's practicing like he's gonna shoot, and they're playing around with the guns, and so Paul takes aim at the neighbor's has a little windmill or a little doohickey up on top of the roof, and Paul is looking at that, and he goes, I'm gonna get it, and he pulls the gun, just pretending, because the gun wasn't loaded, of course. Who would load a gun? I mean, they wouldn't be playing with loaded guns. The gun went off. All that time he'd been playing with a loaded gun, which happens a lot. That's why guns now are supposed to be in a gun safe, not near children. We got a lot better. When I was a kid at the church, the Orthodox Church, I remember I'd see a lot of men be like this. They'd have missing fingers. One guy's missed his whole hand. There used to be a lot more industrial accidents because they didn't have covers over chains. Gears were not covered. They didn't have OSHA. There was a lot to be desired as far as safety goes. So a lot of men they just lost fingers and toes and eyeballs, and they were killed, and just really, really crazy. And one time I was in a construction job, and I jumped up on this wrecking ball, and they just swung me around. I was up on the ball, and they brought me up, and I had kind of a ride on it. It was funny. So what happened with Paul? So Paul did not want to get beaten up. He knew he was in for a beating. He knew that he was going to get the junk beat out of him. So you know what Paul did? He decided to lie. He told his mother, he said, Mom, he had a little brother. He had a little baby brother. The little baby brother, his dad would never lay the hand on the baby brother, because the baby brother was just like a little precious little, I don't know, I guess the dad had some kind of morals or standards or something. So Paul said, my little baby brother, Jimmy was the one. Jimmy took a slingshot. I saw him. And Jimmy, he put the little stone in a marble, and he shot it, and it hurt the window. And that's what happened, Mom. That's how the window got broken, Mom. And because Paul knew that maybe Jimmy would get a talking to, but he wouldn't get a beating. So that's exactly what happened. Well, let's fast forward now 45, 50 years later. I heard this story from Paul directly. And Paul said he were at a family gathering, and they were talking about memories, and all of a sudden, the little Jimmy, he says, big Jimmy now, he's probably, 50 years old. He says, yeah, remember that time I was sitting there in my blue shorts with a yellow shirt, and it had the YMCA logo, and I had my little beanie on, and I was loading my slingshot up, and I shut it through, and I broke the window. I felt horrible because I broke the window. I knew I shouldn't have been with my slingshot. And Paul Clement used some choice words. He went, bull! And Jimmy said, no, Paul, I remember I had my, and Paul gave him the real story, and Jimmy was like, what? Are you kidding me? What? You mean all these years I felt bad for breaking that window and for having this horrible guilt, and it's all a lie? And now you're telling me about it? Really? Are you serious, Paul? And Paul was like, yep, I'm serious. That's exactly the way it was. There was, you never broke the window. You had nothing to do with it, Jimmy. And Jimmy's like, oh. Well, we're going to continue. We're going to have a part 2 today. I just got news. My director's telling me that I can have a part 2. So we're going to have a 2-part series today, and we're going to continue on because I have a lot more to say about memory. But that dramatic story from Paul Clement and his brother illustrates how false memory syndrome can easily make us feel guilt that we aren't responsible for, and that what we remember is not always true. So let's take a look at memory one more minute. I'll be right back after this commercial break. Love you.